This is by far the biggest game of week 2, a top 25 matchup in Norman between Michigan and Oklahoma. The first regular season matchup between these two historic programs, two teams that look drastically different than they did last year, but have very lofty expectations heading into 2025. One of them will get a huge resume-boosting victory. The other one will see their margin for error for the rest of the season get significantly smaller. We're going to break down everything you need to know about this game and share our predicted winner right here at the Gridiron Expert. So guys, welcome to our channel. We're so glad you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. And we're offering all those picks to you for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. You won't find accuracy like ours for a price like ours anywhere else. So go take advantage of it. The link down in the description below over on thegridironexpert.com. So let's get into this thing. I mean, I'm beyond pumped for this. This was one that's been circled on our calendar since the preseason. Obviously, both these teams took care of business in week 1. Michigan beating New Mexico 34-17. Oklahoma beating Illinois State 35-3. So each of them kind of cruising to victory. Both 1-0 as expected, which sets up this massive, colossal, dare I say, showdown in Norman on Saturday night. Let's go ahead and jump into the analysis on both sides of the ball. We'll start on offense, and we'll start with Michigan, the road team. All eyes, obviously, are on Bryce Underwood, right? I mean, all eyes were on him when he committed to Michigan. All eyes were on him last week against New Mexico, where in his debut for the Wolverines, he went 21 for 31, 251 yards, and a touchdown. Not too bad, right? Pretty solid debut against a bad New Mexico team. But all eyes are on him now because this is his first true road test, right? First career college start last week. Now he's coming on the road. And it's not just some rinky-dink team, right? You're coming to Norman, Oklahoma. You're coming to SEC country. You're coming to a very difficult place to play at night, a top 25 showdown. I mean, talk about a tough test for your first ever road game at the collegiate level. So that's the million-dollar question is, how does Underwood handle that? How does he handle the bright lights? How does he handle a defense of this caliber, an environment of this caliber, and only his second ever start at the collegiate level? Another big question is, who steps up to help him, right? He's a talented quarterback. I mean, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But who's going to help him at wide receiver? That was one of the question marks for Michigan coming into the season was who were going to be those big-time playmakers. Last week, he relied heavily on his tight end, Marlon Klein. He led the team with 93 reception yards and a touchdown. The next closest guy was Channing Goodwin, who had only 49 reception yards. So who steps up at wide receiver? You can't rely on your tight end the entire game. If none of them step up and they need to rely heavily on the run, that's fine because you look at the Michigan run game. Justice Haynes, who transferred in from Alabama, was phenomenal. 159 yards, averaged nearly 10 yards per carry, and had 3 touchdowns. He had a great game. But can he replicate that against Oklahoma? Against this defense? That's the million-dollar question. So if the run game kind of gets shut down a little bit, and Bryce Underwood's going to have to find a way to deliver, or this game's close and Bryce Underwood has to lead a 2-minute drive, 2-minute drill to go down there and get the team in field goal range or score a touchdown, who does he rely on to get that done? And is he capable of doing that? So that's what I'm curious to watch for with this Michigan offense. A lot of potential there, arguably better than what we saw last year, but good enough now in week 2. That's the question. Oklahoma, they're a new look offense as well, but they looked really good last week against Illinois State. Again, just Illinois State. John Mateer, though, who was such a fun guy to watch at Washington State, transfers into the Sooners. Last week set a school record for most passing yards in a debut by a quarterback, 392 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Credit him for that, but also credit Ben Arbuckle, who was his offensive coordinator at Washington State, for helping that transition go so smoothly. The Sooners put up nearly 500 yards of offense. Mateer, counting for the majority of that. Keontez Lewis had 119 reception yards. That was nice to see. Deion Burks had 88 reception yards and a touchdown. That was nice to see. One of the issues for Oklahoma last year, as we know, was the wide receiver core. Not because they weren't good, it's because they couldn't stay healthy. This year, at least as of right now, they are fairly healthy, giving Oklahoma that edge, I think, in the passing game. A more veteran quarterback in Mateer, who's not just dangerous to the air, as we've seen, but also very dangerous on the ground. We didn't see him run much against Illinois State. I'm curious to see if they try to design a few more plays for him now against Michigan, maybe trying to keep this Michigan defense on their toes. I would expect you'll see Mateer run a little bit more, whether by design or whether by improvisation by him. But the quarterback play is there. The wide receiver play is there. My concern for Oklahoma is the running game. I expected a lot more last week against Illinois State. Not just from Mateer, but from the running backs as well. The Sooners only had 103 rushing yards against Illinois State. The leader was Torrey Blaylock, who had 44 rushing yards. Against an FCS program I would have expected a lot more. I would have expected a better performance by both the Oklahoma offensive line and the defensive line. They didn't do that. Only 103 rushing yards. That's a concern, too. If Michigan's defensive line, which is very, very good, bottles that up, can John Mateer win this game through the air? Again, he's got the edge over Bryce Underwood from an experience standpoint. We saw what he was capable of through the air last week. We know they've got the edge of the wide receiver core. But again, if Oklahoma becomes one-dimensional, what does that do to the offense? What can Ben Arbuckle draw up if the running game doesn't get going? It doesn't give me a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings about Oklahoma going into this game. Also, they had 2 turnovers last week as well. Again, only week 1, new offense, a lot of new players, building chemistry. You're going to clean that up. We always say you see a team take the biggest leap from week 1 to week 2. I expect that to be the case for Michigan and Oklahoma. But the Sooners, while promising, still have a lot to work on. And they have a lot to work on against a very good Michigan defense. Now, last week against New Mexico, I will say I think Michigan gave up more than I expected, right? New Mexico team that was kind of devoid of talent dropped 17 on the Wolverines. It was actually only a 10-point game in the fourth quarter, guys. So the Lobos were holding their own. The Wolverines gave up 217 passing yards, but only 51 rushing yards, and did force 3 turnovers. They had 3 sacks. They had 9 tackles for a loss. The front 7, to me, lived up to the expectations, right? They scored more points than maybe they should have, but Michigan was in control for the entire game. They continuously pressured the quarterback, created a bunch of negative plays, got some turnovers. Again, 217 passing yards isn't ideal. 51 rushing yards is very good against anybody. So I'm watching Michigan coming into this game and saying what we just said. If you bottle up the Oklahoma run game and also contain John Mateer to the pocket, you've got a good chance to win this game. I think the secondary will play fairly well in Norman. I think the defense will travel well. But the key for Michigan is to limit Mateer's ability to extend plays. We saw him do that a lot last week against Illinois State. Pocket collapses, he's going to roll out to his right. He might not even run it. Yeah, he's going to roll out to his right, but he's going to launch it downfield, right? He's a guy that can create something out of nothing, and Michigan's got to do a really good job taking that away. Don't allow Oklahoma to all of a sudden find their run game, shut that down, and then limit John Mateer to the pocket. He can beat you through the air, there's no doubt about it, but limiting his ability, his dual threat ability, that's going to be the key. So that's for the battle I'm watching out for. Offensively, I'm looking at Bryce Underwood, how he handles his first road environment. Defensively, I'm seeing if they can shut down the run, and that includes shutting down the quarterback run as well. Oklahoma, Brent Venables is calling the defense. He is calling the defense this year, and he did a decent job last week. Held Illinois State to 151 yards. The Sooners outgained them 495 to 151, but again, only scored 35 points, which could be viewed as a concern. The Sooners only gave up 34 passing yards, but did allow 117 on the ground, allowed them to average 4.5 yards per carry. To me, that's a concern. I felt like Illinois State moved the ball better than they should have against this Sooners front 7. And they've got a talented front 7. But they didn't get the push up front. They weren't creating a lot of negative plays. I didn't see a whole lot of sacks. Didn't see a whole lot of tackles for a loss. Didn't see any, huge chunk plays by Illinois State. But 4.5 yards per carry isn't too bad. So that's something that I'm watching out for Oklahoma, especially going up against a Michigan team that would love nothing more than to pound the rock with Justin Haynes to take the pressure off of Bryce Underwood, or better yet, establish that run to set up some very easy throws for Bryce Underwood. I could be wrong here, but I don't expect Michigan to come out there and just start slinging it. I don't expect them to be like Notre Dame and come out there and throw the ball 6 times in their first 7 plays, like Notre Dame did with C.J. Carr against Miami. I don't expect that. I think Michigan would love nothing more than try to control the clock, control the tempo, slow the game down, run the ball, and take as much pressure off of their young quarterback as they possibly can. So Oklahoma's got to find a way defensively to make Bryce Underwood uncomfortable. I don't expect Justice Haynes to have as good of a game as he did against New Mexico. I just don't. So if you can find a way to make this young quarterback uncomfortable, force him into some mistakes, force him into some second, third, and long situations, force him to make some throws that he knows he probably shouldn't, that's what Oklahoma needs to do. You find a way to rattle this young quarterback, you're going to be looking pretty dang solid. So this is a really, I feel like, even matchup, guys. I mean, there's so many new pieces, so many questions on both of these teams. Obviously, you can't put too much stock into what you saw in week 1 with all these new pieces, with all these new players against weak opponents. You just can't. You can't put that much stock into it, but it is worth noting. Again, we always see the biggest jump for every team typically from week 1 to week 2. That will be the case here. These two teams, I think, will look a lot crisper, a lot more competent than they were in week 1. They weren't necessarily that bad. But ultimately, in Norman, Saturday night, biggest game of the week, College game day in appearance. I believe that Oklahoma wins this game. I mentioned it earlier, I think Oklahoma has the edge at quarterback. certainly from an experience standpoint. John Mateer's dual threat capability makes him more dangerous than Bryce Underwood. I know Washington State wasn't playing the best of opponents, but he has experience as a starter at Washington State, played very well last week as a starter, has his offensive coordinator for continuity. I like the quarterback edge. They've got the better wide receiver edge, no doubt about it. From a pass catching standpoint, Oklahoma owns that edge. Defensively, could really go either way. Both defenses very solid. Oklahoma owns home field advantage, and that to me is going to be the big time difference maker, especially with a young, inexperienced quarterback in Underwood. It's going to be fun. It's going to be close. I don't expect a lot of points. I think it's going to be fairly low scoring, but give me Oklahoma to get the massive, massive win for Brent Venables. This is a make or break year for him. This feels like a make or break game for him, especially with a brutal SEC slate coming their way. But the Sooners get the win over the Wolverines and improve to 2-0. Michigan 1-1, but don't worry, they're going to be just fine. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. Again, the link for it down in the description below. We want you to take advantage of them. Sign up with us today. Win big with us today. Also, check out our weekly newsletters, also over on thegridironexpert.com. Tons of exclusive content there that you do not want to miss. Again, thegridironexpert.com. Take advantage of it. Become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.